for you, what values get violated when your son acts up, whatever, right? Like what
Mhm.
are you aware of those values and can you speak to them? Like what would those be?
Mhm.
Because I bet other people feel the same way and they'll have those same values violated.
Yeah. Um, well, there are some, I guess, and this could go in many different directions because I think from my kid doing something, I think the values of respect are really important.
Mm,
Um, and this is around, right? Who is in the room and are you respecting them or no? Or you're not, regardless if it's mom, is dad, or is this friend that came here, or we're outside.
hmm.
It's a trigger, right? Hey, just jump right away. It's
Yeah.
almost a click, and sometimes it's not even. Hey, they are figuring it out. Like they are 3 year old together, and I think we have
Right.
talked about this. Hey, in the same minute, they are gonna hack. They are gonna love each other. They are gonna push suddenly, and they are gonna say, "No, this is mine."
Hmm.
Right? And we as parents, we might jump in the second 10 when my son says, "No, this is mine," right? And we are like,
Hmm.
"Hey, respect, respect." And that's a danger. So that's why the trigger is there. The point is to coming from the amygdala, the trigger, where you
Yeah.
don't want to lead yourself. You want to move to the frontal cortex and say, "Hey, is this really a situation where I have to say no? You don't talk like that
Hmm.
to your father, or to your mom, or to this friend, or is a moment where I say, hey, wait a minute, actually, it's good that he's pushing back here because he needs to
Hmm.
push back in life, and he needs to." So
I feel you.
if maybe to summarize is recognizing those values are difficult,
Hmm.
and at the same time, what do you do with them when the trigger comes? Hmm.
Yeah. I think it's something I want to discuss with my wife. We're gonna go to Brewhound later if y'all want to come.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
but shout out to Brewhound. That's where my wife and I met. Brewhound Dog
Yeah.
Park,
We love Brujound.
Jacksonville's best dog park. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I want to talk with her about that to say like what when you get really upset, like what values do you think get like violated with that? Respect's a big one for me. I totally resonate with that.
Hmm.
I think fairness is also a big one that I run into. Like, hey, that's not fair. And then I know there's a very deep visceral care and harm dynamic of like the other day, my son very gently, but still definitely kind of like grabbed a kid that was half of his age, a friend of ours that we were hanging out with, and started kind of like pushing him down. It was very slow. It was still aggressive. And I was like, no way, bro. Like, absolutely not. So I know those things are like triggers for me, and those seem to be moral foundations as well. There's a guy, Jonathan Haidt, who talks about moral foundations theory, and I know that's language that I'm pulling from there. I don't care so much about embarrassment. Like if our son's freaking out in public, I'm not really that embarrassed. I'm curious about that with you. I mean, do you get like the ooh, son's, freaking out. I gotta quiet him down. Like I'm not trying to one up you or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if that's a thing.
Yeah, and many parents, I bet that they are going through this journey, especially if they have younger kids or babies. Like you
Yeah.
kind of start off listening too many voices until the happy path, I think, is when you start turning those voices and say, "Who cares? I close the door,
Yeah.
and this is the republic of my home, and this is my family. This is who I care. If I respect, obviously, everyone, but I think I learn, or I believe, at a point, I learned to not feel embarrassed for those kind of things. So yeah, if my kid
Okay.
is having a meltdown in the middle of Walmart floor, right? Hey, let's hang in there. Let's do
Okay.
whatever we do to
Yeah.
try to, and who cares if there is someone around and is looking at us? Yeah.
Okay. Do you think so? I've
Uh-huh.
always thought that was like a Southern thing. Like I grew up in the South. I
Yeah.
grew up in Northeast Florida, same kind of areas here, really small town. And I always felt
Mm.
like it was like a thing that happened in the South where it's like, hey, get up, don't be acting crazy in public, don't embarrass your mother and your father, that kind of thing. and I know it wasn't just my family, it was other families and stuff. And but I'm wondering, like, you grew up in Spain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
what was that? So I'm wondering, is that like a just that's a thing with people, and some people are more and less sensitive to embarrassment? That's logical to me. Or is it like, no, it's, I've kind of noticed that more here in the South.
Hmm.
Or is that like, no, 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 that's in Spain too. That's just how people are. I'm curious your thoughts on
Yeah, and
that.
I think at least in Spain, yeah, growing up, definitely, and there is a good component of the community and respecting, and hey, yeah, you start crying in whatever, take the kid out, or I'm
Mm.
100% sure if it's everywhere, obviously, but yeah, for sure, that is like, hey, what's going on with that kid that is having a
Yeah.
meltdown? I think now, because there is way more information, because there are thousand philosophies of how you raise your kid, right? It's different. It's slightly different, and people understand a little bit more. Hey, there's a kid crying, you also
Hmm.
cry, and there is a mix there, I think. And maybe this is a different completely conversation, but I think none of the streams are where I will put myself in terms, right? But probably, yeah, and definitely not where we were in 20 years back or 30 years back, right? Where
Yeah.
you don't cry, right? Shut
Right.
up, right? Or whatever you name it, right? Or sorry.
Hmm.
And of course, kids don't cry. Or there's sentence like that. Men don't cry.
Right.
And yeah, we grew up on that. It is not like that right now.
I agree, man. That's
Yeah.
totally shifted. I think there's definitely there is kind of like the way I've seen it before when I've read about masculinity, and this is coming from like more like Carl Jung, like Jungian
Yep.
psychology,
Hmm.
is there's this ideal kind of archetype that you'd be going for, different types of archetypes, but there's an active and a passive shadow, and there's an active king and an active warrior shadow, and like a passive warrior shadow. And so if we think of like the warrior archetype, it's this person who knows like where to cut things off, how to essentially get things done. It's like men at work, men in battle, that type of thing. And I would say like the active shadow of that we as generate men in generations have gone through is the don't you ever cry,
Hmm.
right? And it's easy
Yeah.
to swing from that to the passive shadow, which is like I'll cry when it's really not necessary, and like
Hmm.
to a degree where people would truly lose respect for you. So I hear what you're saying. I definitely think there's a balance to be struck, and
Yeah.
I've most of the dads and stuff that I've been around have accepted that balance as well. It's okay to cry and cry about important things. Like I get also
Hmm.
there's an age component there. So it's good to hear you say that. That's affirming.